Tonight is the thrilling conclusion to Unbelievable on Netflix. Do you know what happens when you decide you're not going to take what you can get anymore? You get more. We discuss that and even more stuff on today's Unbelievable After Show on AfterBuzz TV. Let's go.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
How's everyone doing out there on the internet?
Hi, guys.
Hey, it's Flobo Boyce, and this is the Unbelievable After Show, the Netflix original program where we discuss each and every show in this 8-part miniseries. I'm being joined by my co-host who is, quote, happy to be here. Give it up for Alexis Brown.
That is indeed a quote. Hey, guys.
I was thinking, well, why are you happy to be here? Specifically, I'm just curious. What makes you super happy today?
I'm happy. Well, I guess it's kind of bittersweet because it's the last episode, which means it's our last show.
Right.
But I love this episode so much that I'm excited to talk about it. So that's why I'm happy.
And it's great because it's the last episode. We can actually discuss spoilers and other things we're all into. Unbelievable took the world by storm when it was released on Netflix last week. And now we can finally read articles and not have to worry about getting ourselves spoiled. But episode 8... overall thoughts of this episode in the season. Just want to see just general impressions of the start to finish, the investigation, all that extra stuff.
I'm happy it's all wrapped up. There were some things in the show that I didn't like about that we're going to talk about as we go through all the various topics. But, it was entertaining. I was happy that they found justice, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, they always say 2 questions when you see something, right? 1, do you like it? And 2, would you recommend it to a friend? Would you recommend Unbelievable to a friend?
Oh, yes, for sure.
Okay. Sometimes you see a good show, you're like, well, that was great, but I don't know how to describe it to someone else.
Oh, no, I've been bragging about it to everybody, saying they should watch it.
Okay, now I feel bad I haven't been doing it as much as you have.
You were telling people not to watch it?
No, I liked the show. I was like, that was pretty good. But I didn't tell anybody about it, which is kind of ironic because...
Yeah, I also used to work at the studio that made the show.
Okay.
I started working there after they had finished it, so I didn't get to work on it as much, but everybody loved it, so I was excited to see it. So it's cool that I got to cover it now that I'm not there anymore. So I guess I could have been telling people that for that reason, but I thought it was really good.
My weakness is I'm the worst at pitches. It's like, hey man, watch the show. It's cool. I don't really know how to be like, this is a story about, you know what I'm saying?
See me, I'm like the acting, the directing, when this happened on episode at 32 seconds and whatever. Yeah, I'm gonna do all that.
That's great. I graduated film school, but I'm the worst film student when it comes to things like that. So
you didn't pay attention in class?
No, man. In grad school, you didn't show up. They give you a piece of paper if you're there long enough. Well, let's just dive deep into the episode. The case is still a bit of a convergence from last episode. We were saying this too, that episode 7 felt like the end of the action. This is kind of more of an epilogue type of a deal with Rasmussen trying to understand Parker's reasons for not believing Marie. I know we talked about Parker before, and he's your favorite character of all season, but he seemed really remorseful in this episode. Do you think it was earned or just not enough?
I don't think it was enough, because not only did he mess up Marie's life, but he also, if he would have done his job with Marie, it could have stopped all of the other ones that happened. So to me, as somebody who has dozens of rapes that you can possibly put on your hands, I would be way more remorseful. Like the fact that, and I'm going ahead here, but the fact that Marie had to ask for an apology. If you were really remorseful, she wouldn't have to ask. It would have just came out. And I know he felt away, but was it really remorse and feeling sorry, or was he just mad at himself for making a mistake?
I mean, that's a good thing to think about, because I know there was a scene where he approached Rasmussen later on and was like, guys make mistakes all the time. He would say, kick him off the force, but I made that mistake, and I don't know if he was saying that to really whip himself, or he was waiting for Grace to be like, no, it's okay, but she did not give it to him. That's
what I got from it. It felt like he was fishing for her to be like, no, it happens. And I mean, it does happen, but it shouldn't happen.
Right.
And I'm glad that she didn't.
Okay, so
he didn't deserve it.
For the record, I do agree with you, but I got to offer this counterpoint of, this is the detective, a bunch of other cases happening. This lady comes in. Her foster parents go, she's prone to make up things, and she says she didn't do it, and there really wasn't any evidence there.
Yeah.
When he was in this thing, would you say that at least you can be plausible with it, or it's kind of like, hey man, you should be more intuitive as a detective to say something's not right here?
I made a whole statement in PSA on a couple of our episodes ago of our after show about how I was learning to be more empathetic of people, and that people make mistakes, and sometimes they really did have good intentions even if it doesn't seem that way. And I guess I gotta have to think about it like that with him, because when we watched the first episode, we didn't necessarily believe her either.
True.
It seemed like everything was pointing in the opposite direction. And as a cop, you deal with so many cases. It's like, why am I wasting my time on something that could be a lie when there could be other things going on? And he was wrong, and people do make mistakes. So on the flip side, I get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do feel like he could have been a lot more remorseful.
Oh, absolutely. That scene when he goes to visit Marie, now in 2011, she's a little older. She has a job at a go-kart track, which is pretty, cool job. I mean, not saying it's cool for her, but it's a cool job. But she tries to be like, hey, I'm so sorry. By the way, here's just, $500 check from the city. Which was
just kind of like being spit on.
Yeah.
Like, you could have kept that. Like, what? $500? That was ridiculous.
Even Steven, that's the money she had to pay out before.
Yeah.
Giving it back. But you're right. It's one of those things where you can say, look, this guy may have good intentions, but there's no way someone's going to accept that and be like, oh, man, thanks.
$500.
Come at me at the end of my shift at night to say, whoops, here's some money.
Years later, after my life has been ruined, pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you think for a second that she was going to take that money?
At first, I was kind of like, maybe. I'm glad she didn't, though.
Yeah.
And also could be me going ahead, because I'm sure we're going to talk about it, but she should have took a lot more money the following time they tried to offer her some money. I'm sure we'll talk about.
Let's go about that right now. So she has this check and she doesn't cash it, which again, if someone gave me $100 from the city, I probably would. But it takes her emotional resolve to say, look, no, there's something empty. And she goes to see a lawyer. In fact, she goes back to Mr. Hughes. Hughes gives her a recommendation to Bruce Bronstein, and he goes, look, I'm going to try to get you a legitimate amount. The first amount was quoted at $150,000. But to her, it wasn't like the money. It was like the money was part of it. She wanted the apology. She wanted it to be right. Walk me through that.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like she said she didn't want to just take whatever, and I guess she felt the $500 was whatever. To me, the $150,000 felt like just whatever, because I know they have way more money that they could have given her. For all that she's been through, I felt like she was worth way more. But she ended up just taking that. And I mean, I guess for someone like her who hasn't really had a lot of money, $150,000 sounds like a massive amount of money. Like, she was like, oh, I can take this to go turn my life around. And I was thinking, well, maybe for like a year or two, depending on what you do with it, if you invested into something. But that really isn't that much money. Right. Maybe I'm just like bougie. I don't know. But I just felt like she should have listened to her lawyer and tried to get a little more. But I also understand dealing with that kind of trauma. It seemed like a lot in the show, old wounds were just repeatedly open up for her. Maybe she just was tired of hearing about it and was like, I want to move on with my life. All I need is for them to acknowledge that what they did was wrong. I'll take what I could get. She bought a nice car with it and go on with your life. Yeah,
I was a bit surprised. Maybe because I'm just so used to the stereotypes. I thought that Bruce would be in his own interest, like look for something. I was like, what's his deal? But he's like, oh, he's trying to get her more money, and she's like, I'm good.
And he's also her lawyer, so maybe he was like, oh, she gets more money, I get more money. Because I was thinking about that too. It was like, well, how much you gonna have to pay the lawyer back for helping you with that $150,000? So.
Yeah, I guess that's never addressed. I guess that makes it be a total aside to the show, but that's never addressed how much he did it for. But if you were Marie, would you take the $150, or would you wait for another settlement?
I would have tried to get more.
For sure. I mean, that's really fair.
Yeah, but I also, like I said, have not been in a traumatic situation like that, knock on wood, so I never have to be, where you just don't want to have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah. And I guess it kind of was enough for her to get that new car and put her bike up there. And before she drives off into the sunset, she calls Duvall and says, thank you for your work. I like the scene. I think it is the most satisfying way to end the show, judging by the subject matter. But I almost felt like if this was a Hollywood movie, they would find a way to have them actually cross paths. But they chose not to. Just what are your thoughts about that?
I think a phone call was enough, because I don't think they ever met. It would have been cool if they did. Maybe they have now in real life, since it's been years since this has happened. But I think just a phone call was enough. And I'm glad that she did that. I wish she would have talked to both of them, though, because I don't... Not that I don't like, but it's just weird to me how on this show they kind of separate the two. Like sometimes Grace would get the credit, sometimes Duvall would get the credit, but I feel like they did it all together. I feel like without one, the other couldn't have done it, and vice versa. So I just wish like maybe they could have called her on three-way, or she could have done 2 phone calls. I don't know, but either way, I'm glad that she was able to, say thank you, because they did help her. Yeah,
it's really one of those things where it subverts the trope of they're not together as a buddy cop drama, but they don't want to be seen as adversarial. So they're kind of like these like two city states or two like, you know, autonomous regions working together. And you're right. I think it would have been a lot more of a Hollywood ending, at least for the three-way call or a letter to someone. But yeah, I thought it was kind of cool despite that, how it ended and her driving off for her new life. And I guess that answers our question we had about episode or 2 episodes ago about if there is a season 2, it probably will be a whole different crime or a different situation. Just the last thoughts on the Marie storyline. I'm glad she got justice. Granted, it was very protracted, and it basically came back at her door because she was willing to walk away with the life she had now. Was there anything else that you think that was kind of like a loose threads or whatever, like her past life or her old family, or were we just accepting it like, hey man, it was fine for what it was. Don't fix what's broken.
That's such a good question. I think, like you said, you know, thinking about the fact that if they never had those pictures, what would have happened to her? Would she have just, like you said, just moved on, tried to move past it and go on with her life? Or, you know, in coming clean to her therapist, did it open up something where she felt like she could have said something? I would like to think that, but that's not how it came off on the show. So I guess we should just thank God that, it's a bad situation, I want to thank God for it, but it's a good thing that, you know, they were able to find those pictures. And then also, we never really found out what was on the other hard drive they couldn't figure out how to get into.
Right.
So that's scary too. It's like, well, what other stories and situations do we not know? And I mean, I know he's basically going to be in jail for the rest of his life, but what women out there are, you know, feeling like they're not seen, maybe nobody knows that it happened to them, and it's a secret that they feel ashamed about and can't put out because, you know, their situations were never addressed.
That's definitely a good point. I want to give a shout out to all of us in the chat. We're here interacting with you guys. Melissa German says it wasn't enough, referring to the amount that Marie took from her settlement. Rainey J says he did like Parker much better than the other detective, Pruitt. Pruitt, if you notice that apology scene, they didn't even say a word. He was in the back hole like Batman, just like, you know what I mean? Like, I felt like even though those two detectives were not perfect, at least Parker tried. As like clown shoes or as like offbeat or tone deaf as it was, Pruitt looked like a guy that was going to his golf tee off time and not caring as much.
Yeah, so, very true.
Shout out to everyone in our chat. Before we move on, we'll make a little quick announcement. You see, this program is on AfterBuzz TV. It's the ESPN of TV talk. We have shows for so many genres and so many types of shows, but we need your help. So if you're listening now, live streaming with us, like, comment, subscribe, share the show with your friends on social media. Just tell one friend about this AfterBuzz show and other AfterBuzz shows. And if you're like me, who kind of listens to the podcast, the audio stream over on iTunes, you can leave a rating and comment there too. 5 stars is what we need to survive. Your comments are great too, because the more 5 stars we get, the more seltzer water we have in our break room. So again, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for making us the ESPN of TV talk.
And I love that seltzer water.
I know, it's delicious. I don't even think it's for the host, but I'll take it anyway. Sorry, guests. Let's talk about McCarthy.
Yeah.
McCarthy is our guy. I was expecting one last red herring. Or one last twist of turn. Didn't happen. Nope. Okay. I'm kind of glad. I'm glad it wasn't a surprise. Him pleading guilty threw me off. I really thought there was going to be a trial episode or at least some sort of like expedited scene where the judge goes, you know, you're guilty. But he said, I'm pleading guilty.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a situation like that, you know, why go through trial if you're going to be guilty regardless? And then I guess now that was his way of making it so he didn't have to get charged for kidnapping, which is weird because who cares? Like, you're a serial rapist and you're going to be in jail for the rest of your life regardless. Why does it matter if people think you kidnapped somebody?
Yeah, that wasn't quite fleshed out. I tried to determine why that would be. I was like, well, it was across state lines because it becomes a federal offense at that point, but then his other crimes are across state lines, so it's already a federal case. So I'm not quite sure why he was about that. But I like the interplay, like you were saying before, his hard drive being encrypted with TrueCrypt software, and to get the password, it was like this back and forth. Well, is he going to forego the kidnapping to get the password? Turns out it didn't happen. So we don't really know what's on that password, on that hard drive, what that could be, and he didn't get the kidnapping charge. So it was a little bit murky in that way, but it was kind of interesting. He said, "Look, I'm guilty. Take me away." Yeah, and we're kind of jumping around a bit, but that scene when he was with Taggart, saying like his chance to say his side of the story, we don't get much, but he seems like that was predetermined.
Yeah, it just seems like he was like, I got away with it, so hey, I'm gonna keep doing it. There was no remorse. There was no, I feel bad for what I did. It was just, I got away with it, so why not? And that sucks.
I hate to pull from another cop show, but there was a show that's canceled now called CSI New York, where one of the detectives went to go see a person that was on trial for something, and he wanted to know why, and then the guy was like laughing and laughing, and they took him away, and she goes back to her boss, Gary Sinise's character, and is like, why? And he's like, sometimes you don't get to know why. You know, some people kind of operate on their own level. In fact, the prosecutor even said it too. I'm not going to press for a password if this guy is pleading guilty to rape. Well, what determination that? But there's something about us being viewers. We're like, man, please tell me why, the motivation.
Or just always wondering in the back of your mind, you know, who could be on there? Like I said, there could be, you know, a woman who is truly just struggling and just never got, even though he's locked up, may never feel like she got the justice she deserved because she never got to come out with her truth, or she was violated and nobody knows. And it's just scary to think what else could have been out there. How many more other stories could there have been?
Absolutely. The victims of previous crimes visit the McCarthy sentencing. Yeah, a lot to unpack in that scene because there really was a bit of catharsis saying, hey, this guy is finally going away. There were some statements, notably from Lily, saying how her life has changed. But Amber appears but hangs out in the back. To me, it was interesting how each victim kind of dealt with it their own certain way. But did any one of those stick out to you as far as how they responded?
Definitely the fraternity mother. I can't remember her name, but the fraternity mother.
Mama D?
Yeah, Mama D. Mama D. Like Love and Hip Hop, shout out. But yeah, just her being like, why me? Like, why did you decide to pull me out of all the people you could have done? I mean, it's never good to rape anyone. Why do it at all? But what was it that I did that made you feel like you could do this to me? And now I feel like I can't have any type of routine in my day because somebody could be watching me to figure out how they can attack me like you did. So that one really stood out to me the most because, you know, you never think just going to get your coffee every morning and just having that habit could be something that can change your life forever and cause you to be attacked. So hearing that and hearing how, you know, that affected her life really resonated with me the most. Sure.
McCarthy being sentenced to 327.5 years in prison, the maximum sentence. Amber didn't stay afterwards. So we were talking about this in a previous episode, how other victims have seen to live with what happened to them, whereas Amber started off as someone who was put together, but over time it seemed like it weighed on her more, which pretty exemplifies how no person is the same, right? Everyone kind of deals with things differently. Do you think she's going to come around? If you had to, like, if there was an episode 9 or 10, do you think that she would come around to Duvall and Rasmussen or at least go to a therapist or something like that?
I think so. I think it's just going to take time. I think her getting that justice and seeing him go away probably is going to help her in some way. And it seemed like hearing, you know, the other victims speaking helped her too, because, you know, hearing the part about Lily about I think violent thoughts now, but I've never done that before. And we heard Amber say the same thing with how she always hated guns, but she went and bought a gun. So I guess hearing from those other victims, knowing that it's okay that she's like this after dealing with this, and that, you know, she just has to kind of work out those feelings would help her. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing is just going to be time, and like probably going to a therapist would be a smart thing.
Yeah, always get professional help if you can. Can't say it's cause of celebration, but there is a bit of an after party scene. That's kind of fun. And we finally get to know what Max and Knife stands for. One of the biggest red herrings of the show. I thought he was a violent killer on the weekends with twine and rope, but he is a singer. Now,
wow.
Now tell me about this. I'm sure you were kind of doing the same thing, obviously. And like, that's a dope song, but for real?
Yeah, I was just like, really? That's what we've been waiting on? Like, I thought it was going to be some cool story, like you said. I didn't think he was a killer or anything, but I thought it was going to be something more badass, not him, you know, karaoke in a bar.
Now, for the record, I like Mac Tonight. It's actually one of my favorite songs, and I'm old enough to remember Mac Tonight, the moon with the piano from McDonald's and stuff. He sang a parody of that song. Okay. See, Alexis is very young and spry, but in the late 80s, McDonald's had this thing where everyone came in for breakfast, but not dinner. So they had a thing called Mac Tonight. It was a giant moon that was a moon like costume guy playing a piano telling you to come to McDonald's tonight. And his song was a parody of Mac the knife, which is a song that Max the Knife says.
Nice. YouTube
that if you're over, if you're under the age of 40, you won't have to.
You're under the age of 40. Shut up.
I just told you everything about it. I thought it was kind of interesting too. But another thing that came in that scene was Grace actually prayed, which maybe is a character beat. Maybe she was messing around with Duvall. But I mean, what do you think about that?
But when you heard the prayer,
it was on brand,
she basically cursed out Jesus. I mean, it worked.
So it's authentic, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got a prayer is a prayer. You know, your own relationship with God is your own relationship with God. But a few less F-bombs wouldn't hurt, you know. But hey, you know, God, He knows your heart.
There is a rule book. Speaking of, there is a scene where Duvall quotes a scripture in the Bible, Matthew 6:34, which I brought up here because it's actually one of my favorites back when I was all about it. But this is the New International Version, so I'm not trying to postulate here. But she says, therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So besides the fact that's the Bible sanctioning YOLO, I thought it was interesting that Duvall brought it up in that scene with her relationship with Duvall. So, hey, look, we put this so much stress on ourselves to, like, you know, find the bad guy, but you gotta save stuff for tomorrow, or there will be another crime, or another way to recover.
Which is so different for Duvall because she usually isn't like that. It's usually Grace having to say, you know, you can go home, like, we don't have to worry about this tomorrow. But I guess in going through this process, she learned that.
Yeah.
So that's good. They kind of, in that moment, you learned that they kind of learned from each other and took things from each other.
Yeah.
Which means that they really bonded, which is nice.
Oh.
Yeah.
Before we get on to our special segment, did you have any overall thoughts about the episode that you want to add on to things?
No, I think just glad that they got justice. What really I think stood out to me is the fact that, you know, why everybody's celebrating and happy that, you know, this ended and that they found the killer. I just couldn't help but think about all the people who have gone through stuff like this who never got that justice.
Absolutely.
And may never will. And it's really sad. And it really hit me when, you know, I was seeing how the detective was dealing with it, because it's like, yeah, I feel bad you made a mistake. I know you're going to have to live with that mistake forever. But how many victims are out there and dealing with situations like Marie because of a detective like you who didn't care and still doesn't care? And as we found out from our news like a couple episodes ago, nothing happened to him. He wasn't penalized in any way. He went back to work. It didn't, other than his guilt, it really didn't affect his life. So I couldn't help but think about all the victims out there and all of the detectives who are doing the work that they need to do and actually care, who are trying to get justice for people, and some of the detectives who may not care so much and have too much of their own life to worry about, that they aren't doing what they need to do. So it's a lot of feelings in there with me after watching this, but I am glad in this particular situation that they got the justice they were looking for.
Sure. Just take it back in our chat. Cole Hart 5791 says, I really like the series. And Apple Bear says, I really like the nickname reveal. So that makes one of us.
It was funny. We needed something like that was lighthearted with such a heavy show. So
sure. Chrissy Howard said, it's really crazy that he said he left so much DNA and evidence at the Marie crime scene. We're coming back to McCarthy's methodology, how he got worse and worse, not better and better, but worse and worse at what he was doing, which is very interesting to think about, how there is that escalation thing that everyone was kind of alluding to, but he basically confirmed it by saying, when I started, I was so sloppy and no one caught me, and so I kept going and going. And
it just goes back to detectives not caring enough to really be thorough.
Right.
That's what I thought about when he said that. It's like, well, obviously not, because they just assumed she was lying and moved on from it. They never really took the time to look into it. So of course it was like that. Of course you didn't get caught. Of course you could be messy. And in doing that, he just continued to get better and better.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on, is now time for a special segment. It's now time for Who Caught Ya?
Who caught ya? All right, guys. So we have a fun one today, and I'm going to make you guess again.
Okay.
So we have a burglar.
All right.
And he robs from this couple. They're out of town on vacation. I guess like our rapist in the show, he knew they were going to be out of town. He was watching them. So he robbed them. But how do you think he got caught?
He fell asleep in their bed.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Did he really?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Have you heard this story before?
No, I mean, if I'm burgling somebody, it's a lot of work. I get kind of tired, man.
Yeah, they were out of town, so I assumed he was like, this is a safe space. So he fell asleep in their bed. They came home, he was sleeping in the bed. But what also was funny about it is he cleaned their whole house.
That's the best burglar ever.
Like, he washed the dishes.
Come burgle me, man.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, he stole stuff, but he did clean up. Like, your TV's gone, but your dishes are done. Yeah. So, you know, win-win, I guess. Look,
man, a new TV is $30 on Craigslist. A maid service is $200. I'm willing to take that risk.
Okay, when you put it like that. Well, yeah, well, you got one right.
I got one all season.
Good, yeah, okay.
1 of 8.
All
Give
right.
it up.
Good for you. That's how he got caught, and who caught you?
Moving on, it's now time for our news segment.
AfterBuzz TV News.
All right, guys, it's Alexis Brown, and I'm bringing you the news on the Unbelievable After Show. So first off, if you're like me, that scene with Grace and Detective Parker really stuck with you, with how he kind of professed, you know, I feel like I should explain myself, but I don't know how, and, you know, I feel like, you know, I've always wondered if bad cop should be taken out of the force. That whole scene, it just really hit me because like he probably thought I was expecting Grace to maybe be like, oh, well, no, it's not like that, blah, 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 but she didn't. But if you were wondering what was in the mind of the actors during that time, we have an article from Toni Collette, and she says, I, as an actress, wanted to shame him in a way, which if it was me, I would have. But Susannah Grant, the creator and also the director of that episode, told her to pull back. She wanted Grace to come across as being understanding that you can have a bad day, you can get it wrong, and that she loves that the show is dogmatic in that way. It doesn't demonize the character. It just happens to have been mishandled. And I think that is a true testament to the show. You know, even though there were bad people in the show, people that didn't do what they were supposed to do, people that didn't do things right, nobody was ever like shamed or put down in a certain type of way.
Yeah. So
I think, you know, even though I didn't understand it, seeing it on screen, I think it was helpful.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah.
Just moving away from the news bed for a second. If you were Grace, then would you like curse him out and be like, you should have done that better? Or would you say...
I don't think I would have cursed him out because, you know, Grace has been doing this a long time. I'm sure she's made mistakes too.
Sure.
I just would, I think, want more answers as to why it was so hard to believe her and why just take what you think or what you think just from hearing her foster mom or whatever was in your head to make him think that. Why didn't you just, as a detective, say, well, let me look into it more? Aside from just the compassion of it all, but just being a good detective. Whether you believe him or not, look for the story. That's your job. So I guess I would just kind of probe him more on why he didn't do more and why he just kind of threw it by the wayside.
I can respect that. And it being the last episode of this series, AfterBuzz TV has a special featurette. It's called our Top 3. This is a very, very heavy and serious series, but there were some moments of levity there that put a little smile on our face, a little ha-ha, a little chuckle. This is our unofficial top 3 moments that made us smile during such a grim show as Unbelievable. Number 3 for me is Plucky Elias, the intern, audience surrogate, didn't quite know how things worked out, but everyone explained to him. There was a time when he actually thought about calling or tracking down a missing panty lead for one of her crimes, and most of the female officers were like, yeah, do that, because ladies lose their undergarments all the time. What are you doing, intern? That was number 3. Number 2 was definitely the Max the Knife reveal. It was silly. I was still expecting a nighttime ninja, but him getting on doing karaoke was always fun. I love karaoke too. I can't sing worth a lick, but I love doing the whole like things off beat, you know. I do a lot of Three Doors Down, a little House and Change.
But now you have to do Max the Knife when you go next time.
Oh man, I don't get that swag. I don't have that level of swag. And the number 1 moment for me was definitely a sketch artist scene. Play with our emotions. We thought we had a break in the case, but the sketch artist was what? A guy wearing a mask. That didn't really help us out at all. So,
especially because Lily was like, the officer said it didn't matter to did it because he had on a mask, but I felt like he should, and then we think, oh well, maybe she does have something.
Yeah.
It was just a guy in a mask, like he said.
I paid a Brazilian artist. No, he was for free. He's really, really expensive, and it's like, okay, great. So those are our top 3 moments of a little bit of levity on this season. Unbelievable.
You know what I want to do, Flobo? I think because it's our last episode, we should figure out what happened with the real people in real life.
Tell us.
So I did find a few things on some of our characters. The first thing being Marie Adler. She's the only one in the series who actually has the real name of the character. Everybody else has pretend names.
Okay.
So the Marie in real life, what happened did happen. She received a settlement for $150,000 and she left the state. She has since gone on to get married and have 2 children. She got a commercial driver's license and took a job as a long haul trucker, which is crazy because she couldn't drive for the entire series, but now she's a trucker.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
And additionally, she received an undisclosed settlement with the at-risk youth program who oversaw where she was living at the time of the assault. Interesting.
Yeah.
Because I thought they did her wrong too. So I think it's cool that, they felt remorse and they gave her a settlement too to kind of make it better. I wonder why they didn't put that in the show.
I'm kind of go back to that storyline a bit.
Yeah. So if you were wondering what happened with the detectives, Karen and Grace, the first one, Grace Rasmussen, her real name is Edna Hendershot.
Yeah,
He's a Colorado detective who's worked on more than 100 cases in her career prior to coming across this one. She was promoted to sergeant, rightfully so, I think. And according to 48 Hours, she is also currently listed as part of the Adamas, Broomfield, and Aurora Regions Crisis Intervention Teams Association of Colorado. I don't know what that is, but it sounds like a good thing.
Sounds official.
And then Karen Duvall, whose real name is Stacy Galbraith in real life. She's just as much of a badass. That's exactly what it says on here. She was instrumental in tracking down and catching the serial rapist. Today, she's an agent with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. In 2011, she received Officer of the Year, also rightfully so, and she still advocates passionately for rape survivors. And then for Detectives Parker and Pruitt, we talked about them a little bit on a previous episode. They weren't penalized in any way. I guess the only thing they're living with now is their guilt, if they have that. But as far as their jobs and anything like that, they're still doing it.
Oh wow, they're still doing that. That's really surprising. I thought that Parker would, or the Parker analog would have resigned, but he's with it too.
Yep.
So, I mean, this is it. This is the end of the line. Unbelievable. Took us on a wild ride.
Yeah.
I can't say this is quite a prediction now because we don't know if they're being renewed or if they're even going to go with the same thing. But if you were the head honcho at Netflix, what will we see moving forward for this franchise?
I mean, it's set as a limited series, so my thing, I guess, would be just to end it here since it did end on such a good note. But it did do very well, so maybe, like you said, they'll do another one where it's not the same people or even maybe not even the same crime, but it's us following detectives as they try to follow an unbelievable crime. I'm sure there's lots of situations that could fit a show like this, so maybe they'll just do it that way, make it an anthology series.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an asset for Netflix. They can do another anthology series, like you said, or they can say, hey, look, this kind of show had this kind of traction. Let's make more programming that raises these questions and fosters these conversations. Yeah, just final thoughts on my end. It was definitely a show that had the trailer had me hooked. Looking back on it, I thought it'd be a lot more of you get to be interactive as an audience member. I felt like I felt watching the trailer that we'll be presented suspects and we can sit there and discuss. I think it's him, I think it's them. It did seem a bit more linear. It felt like, oh, this is a guy we think is a guy. No, he's not the guy. Maybe this guy is not the guy, which is also great because at the end the result's the same, but I would like to play along a little more to make me feel like I'm helping out a bit. But it's a small criticism on my end. Did you have anything that
I think for me, I thought that I would believe that she was lying for longer. I feel like I kind of thought in the beginning that she may have been lying, but then by episode 2 I knew she wasn't lying. I thought going into the show that I was going to think for majority of the show that she was a liar, but maybe it was just me. Maybe people really did think that, so that's what I took from it, but I'm glad that the truth did come out.
Excellent. So we want to thank you so much for being with us over these past 8 episodes of the Unbelievable After Show. Alexis, where can the world find you online?
You guys can find me on Instagram and Twitter at I am Lexi Fierce. That is IAMLEXIFIERCE.
My name is Flobo Boyce. You can find me on Twitter at Flobo Boyce, on Instagram at Flobito, and Flobito.com. And until next time, buzz you later.
Bye, guys.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.